Today we've got lots to talk about. We've got breaking cruise news, breaking COVID news coming out of Japan and some big changes coming there. We've got masks coming back on the Coral Princess. And finally, how are foreign affairs and what's going on in the world impacting what cruises you decide to book? A really interesting story coming out of Hong Kong and what their goals are with cruise passengers coming in. And so I would really like to talk about it with you. So let's go ahead and get started. Hi there, this is Allison with Let's Go Travel Tips. Today is Monday, it's April 17th of 2023. And first off, we've got really big news on the Coral Princess. Right now, the Coral Princess is sailing on a 29-night round trip round Australia round trip from Brisbane, Australia. She left on Friday, March 31st, and the passengers on board, one of our Let's Go family members happened to send me an announcement that they received from the ship, of course, asking them to please go ahead. It says, I wish to advise you of an update to our onboard mask wearing policy. While masks are no longer required, we do recommend that guests wear masks indoors when not in your own stateroom or not eating or drinking. They went on to say, please continue to follow the general sanitary measures we always recommend, including washing your hands regularly with soap and water, especially after using the restroom, after coughing or sneezing, and before eating, drinking, or smoking, is what it says. So they did say that there has been an uptick in cases on board. They did not release how many people did test positive for COVID on board the ship. They also said that as time is rolling forward here, that fewer people are testing positive than were initially. I thought it was interesting that I received this just today, and it comes right after one of our Let's Go family members put a question in the comments saying, do cruise lines even talk about, COVID cases, keep track of them, something like that, and, do they even care about them? And you might recall it's been a little while now since the CDC has required them to continually, just report every week. For a long time there, the cruise lines had to report just very, very often how many cases of COVID they had, and then that requirement went away. But clearly, the cruise lines are still keeping track of how many COVID cases they get. They are still concerned about it because that can become a big issue, I think, pretty quickly. But it sounds like on the Coral Princess, from what is being reported, that things are looking up there. They do, of course, ask that passengers self-quarantine in their cabin if they happen to test positive for COVID. But with those masks, I think that it's, tell me what you think. I think that in the long run, it is going to just be something that we see come and go. The request for masking, the reminder to wash your hands, social distancing, things like that, whenever there are more than average, perhaps, cases on board a cruise ship. So have any of you been on a cruise ship lately that you've heard anything about COVID? I have not heard an update from anyone that has been on a cruise ship lately and had anything really much to say about COVID except for this. And so let me know what you hear. And I would also remind you, it is so important that whenever you are going to go on a cruise, to look and double check what the requirements are. Most of the cruise lines for most places in the world now don't have any requirements, but it is still really important to check just in case you are calling it a port that has a requirement, or if anything has changed in, just recently, just to stay up to date on it. And so that is kind of rolling into our next topic. So those of you who have a cruise booked in Japan, and I talked about this a while back when Princess announced what their protocols were going to be if you were going to go on a cruise in Japan, starting on May 8th. Japan is going to reclassify COVID from being like their category 5, I believe it is right now, like in the same category with tuberculosis, down to a category 2. And that is going to change what the requirements are. So previous to this change, so clear up until May 8th, if you were going to fly into Japan, or if you were going to come on a ship, you had to register and provide proof of at least 3 doses of a COVID vaccine, or you needed to have a negative COVID test. They were very particular about that, and I think they're going to stay particular about it until they make that change on May 8th. After May 8th, you are no longer going to have to show that proof of a negative COVID test to come in from most countries. Let me just add that. Double check on whatever country you are coming from, okay? Because I know it's different, like if you're coming from mainland China. I read through a whole bunch, and so you need to do your own research. I'm just telling you the overview so that we see the shifts in what's required and you know to go look. So if you are flying in from most places in the world, you don't have to show that proof of a COVID test or a negative COVID test. Along with that, remember, none of the cruise lines have updated their protocols yet. This is brand new news today. Our Let's Go family member, Yuki, who is in Tokyo right now, was so kind to post the link to one of the news stories in our Facebook group, and then I followed up with several other stories. But, so this is going to be a big change, though, in what the requirements are if you're wanting to visit Japan. And it will be really interesting to see what the cruise lines do with it. But among some of the changes that are not going to have to worry about anymore, where you were going to quarantine used to be a big concern, and quarantining. They are no longer requiring people to quarantine. They also are no longer requiring people to wear masks. You can wear a mask if you want to, but you don't if you don't want to. Those infected, so if you had COVID, you don't have to quarantine, and people who are close contacts to people who had COVID are no longer required to quarantine or isolate either. It says the government will no longer be able to issue a state of emergency if the COVID-19 infections rise, the number of those. It says restaurants and bars will not be encouraged to shorten business hours or close. And that's kind of nice if you're visiting, if things will hopefully stay open a little bit longer. They do mention once again that the masks will become optional. And it says border restrictions are likely to ease further. So I just thought it was, this is good news from this standpoint. I know we have a lot of Let's Go family members who did not want to have to show proof of vaccine in order to go on a cruise there. Like I said, we have not heard from the cruise lines, but usually the cruise lines follow what the protocols are from the country that they're sailing from or visiting. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we don't have changes to that, which will really open things up for not only Let's Go family members, but for everyone who wants to go on a cruise originating in Japan or around Japan. Princess has so many amazing itineraries, and so does Celebrity. I was looking at them right before I did this video. So many options to see so much of Japan. And so this I think is a game changer for those of you who are waiting for it. So we'll just sit back. I'm going to keep my eye on Princesses and Celebrities, especially websites, to see what changes they list with the COVID protocols. But I think this is great. Now, I've been thinking about this a lot as I watch, we all theoretically keep an eye on the news and what's going on in the world, and I keep watching what's going on in Israel. I keep remaining hopeful that we're going to still get to go on our cruise next year. I think we will. I think it would take an awful lot for them to not take us there, but we'll just, of course, have to see. And I don't think that's not an isolated worry of mine, because all over the world it seems like, of course, everything is in motion. And so thinking about that, though, I came across this story about the port of Hong Kong there. And so I don't know if you were aware, but during COVID, the port of Hong Kong was closed longer than most ports were. And then they opened up a little bit and had to close down again. I reported on that story, over a year ago, when they were able to open and then they had to close down again. So they are really excited to be open again, and they have lofty goals. So right now they are expecting for the year of 2023 to receive 160 port calls there in the port of Hong Kong from 16 different cruise lines through the end of 23, like I said. So the port, the gentleman, though, who is the Hong Kong Tourism Board General Manager for the cruise port said, "We are still doing a lot of engagement so that hopefully towards the end of the year they will be able to receive even more ship calls." They are putting together, they said, like a total package. So they are including like funding support, marketing cooperation, help with itinerary planning in neighboring ports so that the ships can, know where they can call, as well as like have excursions for people to take. All of these different things with the hope of drawing more cruise passengers to Hong Kong there. Hong Kong has long been on my list of places that I have wanted to visit. I had an aunt that traveled extensively, and maybe I got my travel bug a little bit on that side of the family. I don't know. But anyway, she went to Hong Kong often, and so as I was growing up, she would tell me about it, and so it has been on my list forever. And then you read the news with what's going on with China and all of that. So does that impact? Does what, just political things going on in different regions of the world, just kind of watching the news, does that impact at all what cruises you book? I'm not going to let it impact me. I've decided. I'm so excited to go to Israel next year. We actually have been looking at cruises, seeing if we could please make it work in our itinerary, in our schedule to go this year, but so far it hasn't. But I'm still working on it. We're trying to work things out with scheduling with our children when they really need us and when they don't. But so many exciting places to go out there. So let me know, though. Does that impact you? Does it make you want to go visit anywhere sooner rather than putting it off any longer in case something does happen? I don't know. All these things to think about, but I would really like to talk about it. So I would love to hear from you in the comments what you're thinking about all of this. I would also let's talk about it some more tonight in our live. We're going to do our live at our normally scheduled time. It is Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, which makes it, 8 Central, 7 Mountain, and 6 Pacific. We would love to have you join us. Bring your questions about anything to do with cruising or traveling, and let's have a really good conversation about where we should be going and just some fun things to think about as we look down the road and look at some of these amazing itineraries that are out there. There are so many beautiful places to go, and I don't want to miss a minute. I just want to get to go everywhere that I would like to see, as I'm sure many of you are. So let's go ahead and talk about this evening. The other thing to think about when you're thinking of booking a cruise to somewhere, whether you think of Hong Kong and what's going on with China, or you think of Israel and everything with Iran and just everything in that region and everything to go on. One thing I think is really important to remember is that if the cruise line in the long run can't take you there, they'll still take you somewhere good. So I say go ahead and book the cruise. And I say that, back in 2016, Caroline, my daughter, and we were set to go, and we booked a Princess cruise that included an overnight in Istanbul. That had been on our list for a long time. Well, between the time we booked the cruise and the time we were going to get to go, there was a lot of trouble with Turkey at that time. So the cruise lines quit going because they couldn't ensure everyone's safety. And so we didn't get to go there, but we still had a fabulous Mediterranean cruise and just the best time ever. So I would say book the cruises that you want to go on. And if in the long run the cruise line can't take you there, they'll take you somewhere that will be lovely to visit, and you'll still have a wonderful time. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, would you please subscribe? We would love to have you with us, and I think it will help you out too. I will be, also please give this video a thumbs up if you appreciate these updates, and I will be talking to you all again really soon. You all take really good care. God bless you. Love you. Bye-bye.